Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Startup Garage podcast, your source for all things startup. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Robert Niichel on the line, and he is founder and CEO over at SmartTab. Robert, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, so let's just jump right in. So first off, just to kick us off, tell us a little bit more about what you're doing over at SmartTab, please.
Yeah, we are working on an exciting project where we're working on an ingestible capsule that a patient swallows. It's in the pharmaceutical field. They swallow the capsule. That capsule is then monitored and controlled from an exterior device, an iPhone, perhaps an iWatch, perhaps a PC in a clinical setting. And we use that for very specific targeted delivery prescription drugs.
Can you give an example of some of the types of prescriptions or drugs that would be targeted with this?
Yeah, good question. So we really have a platform technology. So this is very important. So we have a capsule that's controlled wirelessly. We have three different applications. The first one being a targeted drug delivery with our target tab. So something like Crohn's disease. Crohn's disease is an inflammation of the colon. You would like to get the prescription medicine deep into the colon before the prescription medicine is released. So large benefits there. Crohn's disease, it's a big market, a lot of compliance issues. So the benefit there, specific prescription drug, you can get deep into the colon, and then when it's in the correct targeted area, you hit the app on your phone, iWatch, it releases the active ingredients. The other two platforms we're rolling out, one is an injection tablet. So specifically, that could be used for things where people complete injections at home by themselves, things like Humira, Enbrel, insulin, to where now you're moving away from these large molecules of proteins by being injected through a conventional syringe and needle. You swallow the capsule, and the active ingredient is injected into the lining of the stomach. And then the third platform technology around this is a multi-day dose, to where the capsule stays in the system. That would apply specifically to antibiotics, to where you need to have a very specific dose each day, every day, same time for 7 days, and then the capsule washes out of the system. So to answer your question specifically, those are the series of drugs that we're targeting first. Drugs around Crohn's, drugs around large molecule, insulin, and then this multi-day antibiotic release system.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing, and I can see how that would really help the patient. So I think about it. My mother, I mean, she's had Crohn's disease now for I think over 20 years, something like that, before they even really knew what Crohn's was. And I can think about like what she's gone through with like Humira and all these other things, and especially when it, earlier onset, when you think about the target tab, what that would have meant for her on her life cycle. I mean, that's just an amazing. It's an amazing breakthrough, really. I think it's going to really help with the quality of life of these patients that are taking these drugs. And then when I think about the multi-day dose, I mean, when you think as the population ages, and things like remembering to take your pills, things like this, like along the lines of that, it's going to become more and more tricky as our population gets further along in age. How far along is the company? So meaning, are some of these products in market now? I mean, give us a little bit more of the meat of the company overall.
Yeah, exactly. The strategy is, and the path has been, that we started the company about 3 years ago with this idea. My background in the pharmaceutical industry, background in drug delivery industry, with this idea to blend in all the wireless technology that's out there in the field today and bring that specifically to these drug delivery systems. So going from an idea 3 years ago, all the development, all the prototypes, the first big milestone we obtained with the Target Tab 2019 were successful preclinical animal studies. So we took an actual Target Tab, we loaded it with caffeine, we put it into a 40-pound pig, Yorkshire swine, and we did the study. So they swallow the capsule, we send a signal in, it releases the caffeine. We also added in barium sulfate to where you could track the release of the active ingredients via X-ray. So there we saw visually that the Smart Tab released the active ingredients. So that's a big deal. We have a working target tab. You swallow it. We can get a signal in. We can get the active ingredients to release. And then we did blood draws over a series of hours to show that the caffeine was actually absorbed into the animal. So that was a large milestone, going from an idea 3 years ago, reduce it to practice, then actually getting it to work in the pig model. So we're on the path there. So that discrete path for the target tab is now we go into human clinical studies. We will use caffeine again, and then we'll apply for FDA submission, supply the results, and then we'll have FDA approval on the target tab system. Right behind that then is track number 2 with the inject tab. And this is very exciting. This is the one where you now would be taking things like Enbrel, Humira, that people have to self-inject into their leg once a week. We have teamed up with a large pharma company to have them supply the prescription active ingredient to do the animal studies with. So we're fine-tuning. We're on this final approach to complete animal studies. It'll be the same protocol, doing the pig model again, but this time it will be the inject tabs where you're actually injecting the active ingredient into the side of the stomach of the animal, and then hopefully those will be successful. Then we'll have another milestone on track 2. The track 3, the multi-day compartment, we're really in the early stages of that, trying to exactly dial in how does it work with 7 compartments. So now we'll have 1 capsule, 7 compartments. Each compartment will have to open in a sequential event. So we really have this really nice strategy from the company. We have 3 different tracks. Each one is at a different level, so that helps us out with our funding. It helps us out with bringing things to market. It helps us out with strategic partners because everything's kind of staggered, where we'll have more or less rolling milestones as we achieve these different benchmarks.
Speaking of funding, so are you still looking, are you still raising rounds? Or, I mean, where does all that kind of stuff stand on what you can tell us?
Yeah, exactly. So the company to date has been self-funded, individual investors to date. Now, we just started on our Series A round. We really kicked that off at the beginning of this year at the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference. I'm looking for either A, venture capital private equity firms, or B, strategic partnerships through pharma companies. Now, we were making great progress, a lot of great calls, and then mid-March, most all of that was put on hold due to the COVID-19. So once things get back to normal a little bit, we will ramp that up again. But we're looking to raise $25 million through a Series A round. The good news is, with our first round, $3 million, very clean round, no debt, no preferred stock, no liquidation preferences. They've all been individual investors. So having built companies before, you really have a few things going on beyond the product itself. You have your FDA approvals, you have your funding path, and to make sure that the funding is set up properly to where now we can go out and raise our Series A, have a nice deal, and have a nice return to our shareholders.
Man, that's awesome. That's exciting, Robert. So if somebody is listening to this and they want more information on Smart Tab and the technology, I mean, what's the best way for them to connect with your team?
Yeah, the best way through an aggregate level is a web page, which is going to be smarttab.co, C-O, not .com, but .co. So smarttab.co, great web page, some interesting videos, and then, of course, myself on LinkedIn, which would be Robert Niichel. Smart Tab pops up right away on LinkedIn. So you have 2 paths there, either the corporate through the web page or LinkedIn via myself.
Fantastic. Well, Robert, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background, all the great things you're doing over at Smart Tab. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review in the Apple iTunes Store, and if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Startup Garage, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments on the video. Love to know what kind of projects and what kind of startups you're working on. And Robert, thanks again for coming on the show.